All right, welcome to this explainer. Look, today we're unpacking an absolute masterclass in market dynamics. How Ontario's massive, frankly chaotic, cross-border waste headache is secretly the most lucrative arbitrage opportunity of the decade. If you're a commercial waste hauler, a C-suite executive in construction logistics, or a biocarbon investor, you'll want to pay close attention. We're about to map out exactly how you can turn regulatory panic straight into carbon gold.
Here is our roadmap for today. We're going to hit the 2026 border trade chaos, Ontario's commercial waste crisis, 905 Wood, the Sentient Bridge, the Edge Compute Compliance Pipeline, and finally, we'll wrap up with the carbon dividend economics. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. The 2026 border trade chaos and the political and economic shift of the 45th Parliament.
So, to really grasp this opportunity, we first have to ground ourselves in the aggressive economic existentialism that's completely defining Canada's 45th Parliament. It is a massive geopolitical shift. We're tracking a relentless timeline of market panic here, from the liberal technocratic pivot under the Carney ministry in early 2025, straight through to Ontario Premier Doug Ford's tariff-to-tariff posture and the passing of Bill 5. You add in the January 2026 Blue Box collapse, which transfers the financial burden of commercial waste directly onto producers, and the whole thing culminates in a terrifying August deadline. We're talking about a 50% tariff cliff under Section 338 of the U.S. Trade Act, literally threatening all finished Canadian wood exports.
Moving on to Section 2. Ontario's commercial waste crisis, the $189.86 problem driving the trash pipe.
Okay, this is where politics physically crashes into logistics. It is wildly absurd. Because of extreme financial arbitrage legally protected by the U.S. Commerce Clause, our waste is practically being vacuumed straight down the I-75. Think about it. In the Greater Toronto Area, you're paying a floor price of $189.86 Canadian to dump a ton of waste. But if you drive across the border to Michigan, they are legally forced to accept that exact same ton for a staggering 36 cents U.S. Even with proposed hikes to $5 a ton by Michigan lawmakers, the delivered cost is just vastly cheaper. It's a fundamental market failure acting like a giant economic magnet.
3.46 million. That is the sheer tonnage of Canadian waste rolling into Michigan every single year. It literally eats up 14.35% of their total landfill space. It's a daily visual absurdity, this massive convoy crossing the Ambassador and Blue Water bridges, just blindly shipping mixed liabilities into the U.S. But here's the catch. With that impending tariff cliff we just talked about, these shipments are suddenly staring down the barrel of 35% U.S. tariffs and 40% de minimis transshipment penalties. That legal trash chute, it is about to become a massive bleeding financial liability for your balance sheet.
Which brings us perfectly to Section 3, 905 Wood, the Sentient Bridge, and intercepting the flow with Frontier AI.
So how do we stop this blind export? Enter Michael Atkinson's platform, the 905 Wood Digital Refinery, also known as the Sentient Bridge. It intercepts that chaotic flow and separates high-value biocarbon from toxic liabilities right at the source. And to do this, we are deploying a Silicon Valley-grade edge compute stack straight into the mud of a construction site. We're talking next-gen handset hardware, Google Pixel 11 Pros powered by the Tensor G6 chip and Android 17. Through turbo-quant compression and the light RTAI stack, this edge hardware runs a massive Frontier multi-model pipeline. You've got Gemini 3.6 Pro, Gemini 3.5 Flash, Claude Opus 4.8, and Claude Sonnet 4.6, all being rigorously cross-verified by open-source models like GPT-OSS 120B. And to keep your regulators and insurers totally happy, the whole thing is wrapped in explainable compliance using Google Gemini Vertex AI pipelines and AlloyDB.
But here's the reality check. You absolutely cannot ask an operator wearing thick, heavy safety gear on a demolition site to casually tap through some delicate web app. It's just not going to happen. So instead, this uses a 2-second multimodal intake engine mapped to what we call a hostile UI. It's a high-contrast industrial design, stark black, white, and safety orange. It is engineered specifically to cut through worksite dust, heavy rain, and the absolute blinding glare of a 2026 summer. Pure, functional, industrial-grade UX.
All right, Section 4, the Edge Compute Compliance Pipeline and the 12-stage TCLP hazardous isolation chain. Let's actually break down how this AI physically polices the load without slowing down your logistics,
because we need absolute certainty and we need it in under 500 milliseconds. Steps 1 through 6 represent the density engineering engine in action. The driver simply captures a multimodal frame with the pixel camera. Instantly, the on-device light RT stack runs primary inference. Now, if the model is only 70 to 85% confident, which is our amber band, usually meaning weathered wood hiding chemical preservatives, it autonomously escalates to a massive 4.5 billion parameter visual fallacy guard right there on the device. If there's any dual model disagreement during the consensus check, it forces a mechanical shunt for physical scan validation using near-infrared and X-ray fluorescence sensors. There is zero human guesswork here.
And then we hit steps 7 through 12, the ultimate triage and verification gate. Imagine the sensors actually detect heavy metals. Well, the system doesn't pause to ask for permission. It autonomously pings the provincial RPRA API to generate a hazardous waste manifest on the spot. The driver just holds a button on the pixel for 2 seconds to trigger a cryptographic hold to seal. It locks in the exact GPS coordinates, instantly revokes the USMCA tariff-free certificate, and etches the entire forensic ledger straight into Alloy D.
Because remember, the machine is actively, relentlessly defending your liability against the exact legal Ontario Regulation 347 contamination thresholds. The model is literally reading the unedited raw text of OREG 347 using a massive 256K context window. It's hunting for those precise toxicity characteristic leaching procedure, or TCLP, statutory limits: arsenic above 2.5 milligrams per liter, lead above 5.0, and chromium above 5.0. If a load breaches these limits, the AI rejects it instantly. It is literally an automated legal shield for your enterprise.
So what does this look like from an enterprise workflow perspective? It is absolutely flawless. From the moment an automated request for quote locks your rates, it protects your producer type operator profiles and completely optimizes your Ontario transportation insurance. Because the system classifies the load as wholly obtained in Canada, you perfectly bypass that 50% tariff cliff using the HS code 3825.10 defense. All of this compliance is frozen in Vertex ML metadata, which ultimately spits out a heavily encrypted PDF. That is your certificate of origin, your verification, your total compliance shield ready to hand off for cross-border trade.
And now for the grand finale, Section 5, the carbon dividend economics, translating tech to loonies.
This is where we translate this brilliant, explainable compliance into a massive, undeniable commercial delta for your bank accounts. Look at the math. By using 905 wood decoupled billing, you instantly dodge the $60 per ton circle levy that gets slapped on unverified mixed waste. When the AI verifies your load is clean dimensional wood, your pass-through cost plummets to just $5 Canadian per ton. To put that into perspective, on a standard 144-yard walking floor truck carrying 19.15 net tons, you are looking at over $1,000 in immediate bottom-line savings every single trip.
Let's look at the final ledger. When you combine that $60 levy avoidance with verified carbon dividends, which yield $160 Canadian per ton, you are looking at a total net swing of plus $401.90 Canadian per ton right back in your pocket. And if you validate through the premium MRV spot high yield tiers, a single load scales up to a staggering $7,660 CAD. 95 Wood retains the base carbon dividend to 100% fund the hardware deployment, and you secure a massive cash flow positive margin expansion.
So here's the real question. The 905 Wood Digital Refinery is not some feel-good environmental vanity project. It is an urgent, hardcore financial mandate to survive the 2034 landfill capacity cliff and these immediate cross-border tariff wars. You've got the edge compute hardware, the frontier AI, and the regulatory frameworks mapped out to the absolute millimeter. The only question left for your C-suite is this. In the face of a 50% tariff cliff, are you going to keep paying to blindly ship your mixed liabilities down the I-75, or are you finally ready to start refining your carbon assets? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. I highly encourage you to dive into the source materials, run the calculations, and see the commercial delta for yourself.